Everybody has audio? We're good? All right. If not, let me know. I'm going to start first with just one of our quick updates that we have with our version 2 forms. And I guess I should start out by saying if you see something today that you don't have on your system, it's probably just going to need an update. So just let us know if there's something that you want that you don't have, and we can work with our support team and get you guys an update out to you. So the first one was with our version 2 forms. We heard a lot of feedback saying that the comments and the history, and thank you, Brian. Brian let me know I wasn't sharing my screen. Might help you guys out a little bit more. Yeah, with the comments and the history, it was a little bit hard to navigate where those were in the version 2 forms when we first rolled it out. So it used to be that you had to click over here to the right side of the value field and it would pop out to the right. So we've changed that to where now we have a comment button next to each field. And if there is a comment that exists within that field already, it turns green like you see here. And if we click on that, it now has a pop-up window that comes up where you can use your comment templates or just enter a regular comment. So you can see here the comment that I put in is estimated number of testers. And it also has the value history. So if we were to change that value from 1 to a 2, we would also get a new modified time, result time, and the new value and who changed that. So just a little enhancement to make it easier for you guys to use a little bit. So any questions on that? That was our easy one. All right, and if you guys are familiar with version 2, you also probably have seen the sync button up here at the top right. That sync button, we've made it to where it is optional to show or hide now. So when you go into the data entry form editor, we've also kind of revamped this where we've moved some of the stuff off to the right to make it easier to view. We have a new option within the editor to show the sync data button, and we have options on always show it, never show it, or only show it if data has changed. So what that sync button did before was if you had a tag query field on this form and it was grabbing data from, let's say, your SCADA system, you would have to hit that sync button if you thought that value had changed since the last time you viewed the form. And if you click that, it would just go to the database and update the value. So now if you don't have any query fields on here, it really probably doesn't make sense to have that sync button. So we've made it optional whether to hide or show, or only when the data has changed. Any questions at all on any of that? All right. Anybody feel free to hop in if there are questions as we go along. Same with the Suez team. If I missed something, feel free to speak up and let us know. All right, so the second one we'll take a look at has to do with logbooks. You can see here, I've got my default logbook open, but it says the user does not have an associated license. So what we've added is the functionality to be able to put in an operator license number. So if that's something that you get from the state or something like that where you want to track that, we can associate the license number with the entries. So we've got it set here to where if the user doesn't have a license in eRIS, you cannot make an entry. This is set with in the logbook editor for each logbook, we now have a new option called enforce licenses. And if we hover over here, so when you're creating entries, we're enforcing the license. We're saying you have to have a license number in the system to be able to make an entry. Okay, this can be turned on or off. I know in the US, the state of Florida requires a license number to be entered with their logbook entries. So that's why we've added this, but it's available for everybody to use if you'd like to. So if we have this enforced licenses set to on, we have a new portlet as well, which we have it under configuration. It might make sense for if you guys have a configuration administration menus, might make more sense under the administration, but you can put that portlet wherever you want. And the way that this works is we can add a user logbook license. And let's say my license is a B license. So it's just B12345 is my personal license number. We can put an issuance date. So we'll just say I got the B license issued to me on January 1st, 2023. This is the active one, and it's for the admin user. So this will be your list of users in your system. And if I hit save and close there, it adds that license. So as the user's admin, here's my license number, and this is the active one. So where that's going to go is back on our logbook. I'll refresh this page real quick. So now you can see I can make an entry because I have a license assigned to me. And if I make my logbook, my regular logbook entry, when I save that entry now, it's going to put my license number over in the operator field with my name or email address, however you have it set up. So that satisfies some of the regulatory issues that we've run into in some states. Now, what if an operator gets a new license, and let's say they get an A, if we come back in here and add the new A license, and we'll say the issuance date was 1/16 in this case, and we'll say that's the active one for the admin user. You'll notice over here, my B license now becomes inactive. So you can only have one active license per user. And now if we go back and make a new entry with that same user, that will now show my A license with the new entry. So it's always going to take the active license when that entry is made. Any questions around any of that?
Can you apply the license number to an operator and it not show up in that column? Like if you just wanted to document license numbers for your operators without it showing up on your logbook, could you do it? Could you do that?
Yeah, John, maybe you can step in here because I think we have the ability to not enforce licenses here on the option for the logbook, but still use this user license editor portlet. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You could just log the license in here as kind of like a little bit of a database, I guess, and just some tracking, and then not tell the logbook to enforce licenses, and it wouldn't show up, and the logbook would have no idea the licenses exist until that toggle was set.
Sorry, I'd like to ask something else. Is there a way you can create a report with the license numbers and the dates? For us, we thought an operator feature could benefit us by being able to accurately track when licenses are about to expire.
Yeah. So, and John, I'll let John talk a little bit about where we're going with this. But yeah, the plan is to actually add an expiration date to this license as well, to this portlet. John, can you speak to the query and reporting?
Yeah. So, like Ryan said, we'll add a new. I think it's just in review right now to add a new expiration. But right now, you could build a review up because this data is stored in a table. We can set up a table provider to go to that table, pull that data in, and then you could write reports on it. We could also create table views and eRIS off of this and do some conditional formatting and colors too. So that reports and different scheduled table view exports could also have like red if the user license had expired.
Okay, that's great. Just one more thing on this is in Ontario here, most operators actually have dual licenses. We have a treatment license and a distribution license. I'm just wondering how that comes into play when you say a user can only have one license active. And that kind of goes back to not necessarily to logbooks, but to just to tracking dates.
Yeah, we haven't really run into that yet, so if that's something that we need to make enhancements for, Barry, you can create a ticket for it, and we can go through the review process with you.
Yeah.
No problem. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Just to add on to Barry there, we have lots of operators who have all four. Like they'll have the wastewater treatment, wastewater collection, water treatment, and water distribution. And then if you have the wastewater and the water log books, that's just kind of see how that would play together.
Perfect. All right.
Sorry, I just
So-
want. This isn't tied into for Ontario, anyways. The actual licensing database. I know that at the Toronto Partner Conference, that was kind of a discussion where we could API in the licensing spreadsheet, and then we could kind of pick off the operators as well from that list. Is that a thing at all, or no?
Not at this point, no. This was
Okay.
kind of our first stab at it.
Gotcha.
There's a ticket in the works. I don't know where its priority is right now, but there's a ticket for it to look at it.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Next, we'll talk about report books. Right now, we only have reports, so you can run a single report from the report viewer. What we've added now is what we call report books, where we have a new report book editor portlet. And within there, save and close this, we can create a new, what we're calling report book. And what that does is it allows you to put multiple reports within one grouping, to group reports together, really. So what I've done here is I've created a report book called Ryan's Report Book. And I've added two reports, one called Aggregate Table and one called Aqua Advanced Demo Report. So when we have an offset and a duration for each of those individual reports. So if I add a report here, you select the report from your drop down from your report list. You have a start, offset, and a duration. So in this case, I've said we don't want an offset for either of these. So what that means is when we go run this report book in the report viewer, if I choose January 18th as my start date and I run that for one day, it's just going to run this report for the same exact period. So if I had an offset of P1D one day, it would go, if I ran it for the 18th, it would run this report for the 17th. So you can kind of filter these back and forth depending on what your needs are for that report book. Okay, so then and you can give also permissions to those report books. I have myself as a viewer right now for this particular book. What you're going to see, it's a little bit different now, is if you have any report books set up, you'll get a report type selector here in the report viewer page. So you can choose either, I want to run a single report, or if I have a report book, it's going to go pull in those report books from the list that we've defined. So if I run that Ryan report book I'm just going to run it for the 16th here. It's actually going to go run both of those reports at the same time. So here's my aggregate table report, and on my second page is my Aqua Advanced Demo report that I had specified. And you'll notice my start and end dates match what my start and end dates here are in the selector. And that'll always be true if you have a no offset. And these can be exported with both of them will come out in your export. And then these can also be used in the scheduled jobs. So if we created a scheduled job for that report book, you can see over here, I've said, I named it Ryan's scheduled report book. said it was a report book job type now instead of just a single report. And from there, it lets you select which report book you want to run as that scheduled job. One of those three that we have defined. And then you can run it on a schedule. The output can be the PDF. You can still email it on that schedule. So everything that you could do with a single report from the scheduler, you can now do with the report book as well. Questions, comments on report books? But again, yeah, there's just going to be, you're going to have a new portlet called Report Book Editor. I threw it on the same report management page as we had already under the configuration report management. So I've got the report management portlet that you usually have, but then I also have a report book editor portlet on the same page. But again, I mean, you guys know configuration wise, you can put your portlets on any page you want. So just know that it's the report book editor portlet that's new. I'll allow you to set that up. Questions? Comments? All right. You guys are easy today. Next thing I'm going to jump to is our tag information editor. So some of you may have seen this portlet already. We've added some functionality within here. I will note the first time you do this, what we're doing here is we created a tag lookup functionality to where we can go now and look at individual tags, click on individual tags and see where those are used within the system. The first time you do this, when you come into this tag information editor, you will want to scan the artifact type for tag lookup. And it's going to go, so you can tell it, go through everything or just go through individual queries, forms, sheets, and see where those are used. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to scan the database, scan all those artifacts, and create a table in the background that we're going to reference here. So once that scan is done, this might take a while the first time you run it, and you will only have to run it one time to get this to work, from the get-go. But now if I click on, I'm on this AA tag, milligrams per liter. Over here on the right side, we have a tag lookup item. And if you click the magnifying glass here, it will go through and tell us where this is used. So it's saying it's used in 7 different artifacts, and it lists out which those are. So after that first time that I ran it, what I did, and you guys didn't see me do this, I did it ahead of time, but I ran the scan artifact for tag lookup. It created that table. I came in here and I only had 6 artifacts. So then what I did was I went back and created a saved query called Ryan query and added that tag to it. Came back just to check, and it did come up with the data query. So you don't have to scan the artifact type or tag lookup button. You don't have to do that over and over. It will automatically pick those up once you save that query, and it knows that tag was used in that query. That should be the same with reports or forms, sheets, anything that you're using. One that I like to look at here is that Brian likes to use quite a bit on the eRIS web data. He's got this HOEP, the hourly Ontario energy price. So this one's used quite a bit in our system. So if we look at that tag lookup there, you can see it's used in 303 artifacts. Different data queries, reports, but it'll tell you which reports those are used in. So this is something that we've been asked about multiple times over the years and got this going recently. Questions, comments on this?
What version are we looking at here there, Ryan?
This is one of our most recent versions, 3.1.1.114 or 116, I believe. Check that real quick. Yeah, we're on 117 on this one, so this was just released a couple days ago. But I don't know, John, do you know when this was introduced, which version, or around when?
Probably, I could confidently say after 113.
Okay. So yeah, pretty close to the end of the year, towards the end of the year, probably. Sometime in December.
Just to add to it, we have been making improvements on it. So the latest version, that 3.1.1.7, does have the most recent version of the scanning technology.
Any other questions? All right. Well, the last thing I was going to show you was we have a new user preferences portlet. And what this is going to allow you to do under the favorites tab is you can set different data queries, forms, logbooks, table views, and reports to be your favorites. This is per user in this case. So what I've done is I've taken that Aqua Advanced query and an aggregate table query, and I've just set those as my favorites. So you'll get your list here of your saved queries, or for reports, you'll get a list of all your reports. And you can add more than one or more than one. And just make sure you hit the save button over here on the right. But what that's going to do is when I go back to my data query portlet and I pull down my drop down for my saved queries, it takes those favorites and puts them at the top with a star next to it. So it's a little easier to find. So this is pretty similar to our functionality that we introduced a while back where we have favorite tags as well, where if you have something favorited for tags, they show up at the top. So I come down here and just click the star on our tags and make that a favorite. It will now show up at the top of my list every time I go into that tag query and try to select tags. So this will be available for queries, reports, forms, logbooks, table views. It's all the same functionality as far as setting it up. Just add it to your list, make sure you save. Questions, comments on that? Brian, John, Tim, anything to add?
I do not.
Well, that's all we had lined out. I think we're expecting more questions, so might get out of here a little early. Tim, do you have anything? I don't know if you can hear me. Just checking with him on text. Annette, you have a question?
Sorry, I logged in a little bit late. Can you just go back to the operator licenses thing for a second?
Absolutely.
And what fields, I missed the very beginning, and I couldn't see how you actually assign the users, just like it assigned to the eRIS user, right?
Yeah, so in the user license editor, when you add a user logbook license here, you'll put your license number and issuance date, set it as the active, and then here's where you actually set it for that user. So
Okay.
this license number is going to this user.
Okay. And you are gonna add then, like, I don't even know if like we can really just repurpose that issuance date for expiry date, I guess, because I don't even know, like on our license it just gives expiry date. So I
Okay,
don't,
well, we're gonna add. Yeah, you might have missed that too. We're gonna
yeah,
add
I
the
heard they're
an
gonna add that.
expiration date.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you, I don't know, if you wanted to set an issuance date, way in the past, that would probably work too.
Okay, yeah, because that date then, uh we basically what we try to do is we do it in a roundabout way right now, but we count down because we like to use this for a workflow to flag when, you know, we flag it like if within 90 days, then turn the color red that it's going to expire within 90 days or 30 days or whatever, because we have to check them every month, right? Just to make sure that nobody's license is expired. So if there's some way like easily to bring them into the report so we can put that through a workflow and somehow and have like some way to flag when it's like 90 days to expiry date.
Yeah, and I think we can probably do some of that with a report, and yeah, run it through some type of calculation, or somehow to look at how close the expiration date's coming up. Yeah, we can probably do a lot of that once we
Okay.
have that. Well, let me step back then, since we have a little time. Does anybody have the forms version 2 might be new to some people that weren't at the user conference. I know we went through it then, but does anybody have any questions on how version 2 actually works and what the differences are between this and the old one?
I'll throw this out there. I see for the history tab, it says you can delete selected. Now I've
Yeah,
played a
that's
setup.
only for admins.
Right. I understand that. But
Okay.
I've seen that if you actually delete one of those entries, it actually deletes the raw data, um, I guess, stored in the table, right? Is that how it's supposed to operate?
Yeah, John, did we have a ticket in for that?
I don't think there's a ticket for that, but I can see why you would want to be able to differentiate between a full delete or like a just delete the form.
Yeah, because I think the way that it works right now is if we delete one, it gets rid of the form instance and the data, correct?
Yeah, I believe it wipes, it goes right through. I have to check to
Yeah.
confirm that, but
Yep. So Barry, are you wanting something where you do want that differentiation between getting rid of the form and getting rid of the data?
Not necessarily. I just wanted to know if it was working properly, I guess. If that's the desired function, that's fine. I guess the premise has always been that whatever gets entered can never be deleted, right? So this was just a new twist to data entry forms.
yeah, that's fair because the old forms never really had a delete a form instance concept. So
you could, however, John, actually delete data. You could delete data off of an old form. You could go in and wipe
yeah,
it out.
you could. Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying, Barry.
That's good to know.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a different concept. I mean, I guess maybe the enhancement would be to add a lock onto the delete so that you could either turn delete on or off if you wanted to, so that people couldn't delete. That may be something that would be easy to deploy. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I was thinking too, if you hit the delete selected, you get a pop-up to say, do you want to delete just the form or form and data? And then, yeah, maybe there should be, I mean, like Ryan said this and Barry acknowledged it, like this button is only available to admins, but
Yeah.
having the option to choose how much you're deleting when you hit the delete button.
Yep, good comment.
Well, I got another question about these forms. If we put a query on the same page as this version 2 form, vaguely, I'll just describe this vaguely. It looks like the date for the query, like kind of sets itself to the date of the form. Is there a way to override that, or is whatever's on that page is tied to the date of the form?
I have actually never tried that myself, so I'm not sure. John, can we use the different? We do the preferences for the date selector.
Like, I may not be accurate in my description, so.
Or we want to filter the history list or the data that's on the form.
Well, no, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what Barry's saying is they have a data query portlet on the same page as the form. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like a say, call it a dashboard that, you know, is generally designed for, say, yesterday's numbers. And then kind of what I've seen is if I select a wild date for the entry form to populate, it kind of applies that date to the dashboard.
It definitely did that in Forms V1 because Forms V1 had an input date selector that would send dates to everything on that page potentially. There are workarounds to that though that you can adjust. You know, you can set, I forget what it's called in the date selector, but you can basically tie a dashboard object to a certain date selector or not to the date selectors. So there may be a way to get around that. This we have to test on this. I'm not sure that we've done that on this form. We'll get back to you specifically on that though, Barry.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right, awesome.
All right. Any other questions about Forms version 2?
Yeah, is there, do you guys have a quick start guide available on your SharePoint that I can use to develop these? Was there one?
All right, I'll let you handle that one since you've been working on the SharePoint.
So right now our SharePoint's being migrated and it's not available externally, but we do have quick start guides and hands-on labs for the new version 2 forums, as well as a technical guide, I believe, on converting them. So Jeff, if you just send me an email, I can give you the send you those forums, as well as in the meantime, while our SharePoint's down, we do have our documentation stored somewhere else that we can give you access to download all of the files.
Great, thank you.
And on that, apologize for that. We're struggling with Suez IT in France with that. So apologies for that. It's been a long process. We're doing our best, but it is not an easy thing dealing with a different time zone, a different language, and also an organization that's not used to dealing with hundreds of external customers. So it's a lot of painstaking discussions that go on. So
All right. Tim, you have anything to add?
I don't. I finally figured out how to change my audio settings, though. I had to go to the icon in the tray to change my audio settings so that I could hear you. But I got it I got it all set now. So no, thanks. Appreciate it. Well, appreciate everyone joining us. I hope it was worthwhile. Share with me any feedback if you have some. You can either send it to my email at tim.cruz@suez.com, or you could always send an email to support@erisdelivers.com. Always trying to be more transparent about eRIS. So anything that you have, suggestions, features, functions, please always feel free to send those into the support email address as well. We're here to support you, and thank you very much for being a partner. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.